Thank you all for being here tonight. This is our third webinar that we've had virtually. And tonight we're going to be talking with Nick Wallace. Nick is one of the owners of Wallace Farms. Our Healthy for Life customers know him as Nick Sticks. If they haven't met him, Nick is also a customer. And Nick is also a friend. And I've known Nick for about 11 years now. We came to know each other through Preventative Health Sciences, where I worked, and we started a friendship. I'm also a customer of Wallace Farms. Put a little call in for grass-fed beef and steaks and ground beef, and Nick's wearing the sweatshirt to prove it. And tonight, Healthy for Life, I've been involved with Healthy for Life for over 20 years. And one of the things that hit me when I first started with Healthy for Life was the emphasis upon whole foods, the emphasis upon good, solid foods, nutrient dense. And that's always been something. And then from that, where you can still get your vitamins, and from that grows the need for supplements, and the supplements we sell, which are very few in relationship to lots of the health food stores and businesses that you see all around the country. But tonight we're going to go back a couple of steps to how do we get that wonderful food? How do we get that nutrient dense food? And we're also going to Nick is probably going to address the fact that we have some challenges in getting that nutrient dense food. And the challenges happens to be our soil and also our water quality. So Nick is going to be sharing with us tonight about that. He's also going to share some efforts that he's been involved in with a group called 99 Counties, which is about regenerative farming in the state of Iowa, aimed at healthy soil, healthy water, nutrient dense, healthy food. And one of the customers, I don't know if Don, if you're on there tonight, but sent me a email, or asked me to look up an email. And this is dated, I had to check it 4 or 5 times to believe the date, April 27th, 1935. This was a letter to all the governors in the United States of America on uniform soil conservation law. And I won't read you the whole letter, but Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 1937, said this: "The nation that destroys its soil destroys itself." And I got goosebumps when I read it, and I just got goosebumps again. 1937, that's 80 some years ago, if my math is accurate. So tonight we're going to tackle that. Hopefully you'll have lots and lots of questions for Nick about how he has been a farmer here in Iowa, his family's farm, Wallace Farms, grass-fed, whatever you want to ask him. And then I'll come back on and we'll take your questions. So Nick, take it away, buddy.
Yeah, sure. Just a quick intro on who I am and where I'm at. I'm Nick Wallace, 43. Believe it or not, I feel like 43 after the storm we just went through. I have 3 young children, 11, 8, and 4. And my wife, Pascal, and I have been together for, 14 years or so. I'm just south of Keystone, Iowa, 4 miles, but I'm directly west of Cedar Rapids, about 30 miles, right off of Highway 30. So I could see Highway 30 when they closed it down on Thursday night because of all the snow. So I raise grass-fed cattle. Well, let me back up. I'm a regenerative farmer, trying not to just be sustainable and to hold the course of where we're at with our soil and nutrition here on the farm, but we're trying to regenerate it. So we are trying to add and increase every year the health and vitality of our farm. So we're doing that through livestock, crop rotation, diversity, wildlife, and trying to harness the wisdom of what the land is trying to provide and has given us, and try to listen to some of our forefathers who are much smarter than us when it came to agricultural practices. So I've been here about, and I farm my farm, which is 160 acres, a little less, and then another neighboring farm, which is about the same. So, and I had another opportunity for a farm, but it just got to the point where I'm too busy with everything else. But so in farmers terms, I'm pretty small, but organic terms, I'm maybe medium size or a little bit bigger, and quite a bit bigger than your typical hobby farms or artisan farmers. So along with that, we have Wallace Farms, which is a meat business direct to consumer. I started a snack stick company called Nick Sticks. Oh gosh, it's been a decade or more or so ago. And I have had some side projects with Rolling Prairie, which has been kind of a artisan food truck business, as well as the newest venture, which we can talk about later, called 99 Counties. So with that, I want to, and this is more of my dad speaking and some of the wisdom that he's had over the years. So I always feel like I'm plagiarizing him, but I guess I'll pass it down to my kids and they can plagiarize me. But my dad always likes to, when he talks to groups, to plant seeds and to get people thinking about the bigger picture. So, and I had a little revelation the other day that essentially what had happened for thousands of years for people's health, they turn to the soil, they turn to nature, they turn to wildlife, they turn to botanicals, the jungles and the surroundings they had at their hands, and they were more in sync and more with one, and relied on nature to heal them and use nature as medicine, food as medicine. Now they had problems of indoor plumbing and being winters. Imagine a winter a couple 300 400 years ago with not the comforts that we have now. They had all sorts of issues that were stressing their immune systems and creating a shorter lifespan. But think about what they had that could heal them. Now, fast forward to, I'm going to use post World War II. We turned our back in a way on nature. We started to manipulate nature. We started to degrade nature and chemically spray, push yields. We reduced our biodiversity, and we had all the comforts of the lifestyle we have with indoor plumbing, heating, modern day medicines, which made us live longer. But what I would say is that we are currently at I don't know if crossroads is the right word, but I would say we are at a new beginning. We are at the end of a cycle. And I would say that we are waking up very rapidly to the idea that we need to become one with nature again. And so imagine harnessing the power of the technology and the comforts of modern day and going back and looking at the wisdom and the power of nature to heal and combining those two. And so my dad likes to say it took us 50 years to, undo and screw up what, the good Lord, Mother Nature, whoever you want to choose to believe, but Mother Nature provided for a long time. It took us 50 years to screw that up. And maybe it'll take another 50 years to come back, but I have a feeling that if we really get down to it, it'll take a lot less time, because I think Mother Nature wants to heal herself very rapidly and take care of us. So that's the table I'd like to set. And that's the question that I'm always dealing with, and how to live in both worlds and how to harness that. And so that's kind of where I think we should all focus and maybe start those conversations with amongst ourselves, and to start bringing people into the table that are close to that. And there's going to be people that are a long ways away from that mentality, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't consider that they'll change their minds and join that endeavor at some point. So Tim, do you want to do you want to ask me specific questions as we move forward with this talk, or do you want how do you want to how do you want to see the conversation going? Because I could,
Go
I
ahead.
can just
Go ahead,
bounce
Nick,
around.
and go ahead and introduce 99 counties. I think that'd be
Sure.
very helpful, and then we'll spawn questions and answers after that, and give us the
Okay.
context and how that's, and
Yep.
you might want to connect that to Regen Iowa and all the efforts we're doing there. And silt, I mean, that'd be a good, all that you're involved in.
Okay. So I've been doing, my dad really was the vision for Wallace Farms. He really thought that grass-fed beef and wild salmon and food from the land, pastured poultry and everything was going to be the wave of the future. And this was back 1999, shortly after I was diagnosed. So I guess I'm back a little bit why I am sitting where I am and why I have an organic regenerative farm is when I was 19 in 1999, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's cancer, stage 3B. So I went under exploratory surgery and had a tumor, parasite tumor in my right arm. I had a spleen that was filled with tumor, and I had 2 golf ball size tumors in my upper chest cavity. So I had surgery and I had 6 months of chemotherapy. And so luckily when you're 19, you can survive those things and bounce back a little easier than older populations. I wouldn't want to necessarily tackle that right now. Well, and we all know that cancer is an epidemic of huge proportions, and still we don't know why, right? I mean, I think we know why. We just don't want to admit it. So that started off Wallace Farm. So for 20 years, our family was focused on health, or tried to be as much as possible. And so we incorporated a lifestyle with a business choice. And so at that time, and it was a few years after that really I got back involved and came back from Colorado and took the reins of Wallace Farms. But we grew it up to a pretty big size. I mean, we've got a couple thousand customers here in Iowa and Chicago, and I'm bebopping all over the place and have some employees. And so we do a really great job. But it's probably been 3 years now, we noticed that our sales, we just didn't grow anymore. And we had organic growth. We didn't have to worry too much about really trying to market. But, we started asking questions why. And really what it came down to was that we were starting to be replaced by grocery stores who were, throwing their mass scale and money and labeling and marketing expertise at the natural and organic movement. So about 2 years ago, I really started to question the future, where I was headed, what, the movement of grass-fed and where we were at, how much we had grown so much, and it hadn't taken a lot of effort to grow, but, we were still working hard. But the future wasn't quite as bright anymore. So really it stops you in your tracks to wonder where everything's heading. But so that was a couple years ago, and I had tried to make some efforts with that Rolling Prairie, to showcase our meats and to get out in front of people more and to create more of an event and atmosphere around our deliveries and our drops and who we were. But about a year ago, I came back from an organic conference called Acres up in Minneapolis, and it dawned on me. Well, it first came out of frustration because I was at my truck driving back from Minneapolis, and I was thinking, I'm not sure how one farm in one county in one state's going to make any difference. And then as I said that, it was just a revelation, because I had listened to a speaker that had a poultry model that would work on a very small scale. And I thought, well, maybe it would work to have one of those poultry models in every county and every, on every farm in every county in every state. And that's when it kind of hit. I'm like, well, how many counties are in Iowa? And I didn't know. I grew up here my whole life. I didn't know how many counties there were. So there's 99 counties. And I thought, well, that's a pretty cool name for a movement, for a business. And so I just ran with it. And I was obsessed with it for a month, trying to run numbers on what it would look like for every county to have a poultry business. And then, how many farmers could we get in each county to raise cows and grass fed? And then, just think if we could do organic oats, and we could we could have a granola bar maker in Iowa or work with Iowa farmers. And so it just spawned. And I thought this plan is wickedly great, but it's so ambitious that I can't do it myself. So I brought on three newer friends of mine from Practical Farmers of Iowa who are farmers. And I said, what do you think about this? And they instantly fell in love with the concept. And then it's starting, we're just starting to unroll it. I mean, taking a year to kind of get our legs under us and figure out that we realized how ambitious it was. But so essentially 99 counties is a three-legged platform that has farmers at the base who grow food. It's got artisan food makers and processors as the second leg of the stool that take the farmers' hard work and raw materials of food and they turn it into value-added food. They clean the dirt off, they ferment it, they cut it, they make it into soup, stocks, ground beef patties, kimchi, sauerkraut. And then you've got the third leg, which is the most important, is consumers. And we are all consumers. We need to concentrate on food as medicine and try to navigate those waters. And it's not like we're going to eat 100% Iowa all the time, but right now I think we import 90% of our food. So what if we could import 50% of our food? And what if that 50% that we eat here is really healthy from healthy soils? So if you've got farmers working with Main Street, and Main Street, Iowa is dwindling, it's going to be gone in 30, 40, 50 years. So all three of those legs work together. All three of them depend on each other. And all three are what built, a great country many years ago, pre-World War II. The stories of my dad in Keystone, Iowa, back in the 50s was, tiny little town, had a movie theater and a bowling alley and a grocery store or two and a couple of cafes. And my grandma would take the cream in and trade it for, sugar or wherever she didn't raise on the farm. And I'm not saying we're going back to that specifically, but I thought, man, if we could just try to light a fuse to bring back some semblance of a community. And really that's what it is. It's a community. I mean, if you look at Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, those are all free platforms, and they're really just about a community. You're connecting with your community all the time, and your community might be over in Italy and Netherlands, or all of them are here in Iowa, but it's all about community. So at my heart, that is really what all those are. The farmers create their own communities by, farms in my area, county by county, and then the counties start talking, and then you have a statewide community. And then this grows outside that, and Iowa has 99 counties and Illinois has 89 counties, I think, or, and so you can imagine where that goes. And so that's the start. We're building the business plan almost together. We're almost letting people watch and look at how we're doing it. I had the first couple of videos that I explained that's how I really want to build it. I want to fund it with all those platforms. I want everybody to be a part of it within reason, and to be very inclusive and transparent, because I think there's too much secrecy and mistrust now in the world and with corporations, and how goods and energy is transferred from raw materials to the people. So I back to Tim and Regen, Iowa. Tim calls me up one day and says, "Hey, this guy Merlin called, and he's got some ideas to regenerate Iowa, or regenerate the world, really. And we're going to start by doing it in Iowa." And it's a way of not just looking at agriculture. That's one of the 7 pillars, but it's a way of looking at community, looking at what's happened to communities and where their problems really exist, and to give them tools and resources to come together as a community and to fix those problems, and to start addressing where we've gone wrong and what the change of direction needs to be. So I'm really happy that 99 counties and Region Iowa is underway, and Tim's and Merlin and the group have their hands and with other people that are working on very similar projects. So all that comes back to really the soil, right? I mean, it all starts with the soil. I mean, we're building community, but it's about growing the healthiest food we can. And right now, I don't think our soils hold that. I think that we, on my farm here, I've been organic now for 10 years, and I didn't see any life in my soil for the first couple years, and then slowly it's been building, and I'd still want to keep improving because, to get back to what was originally here before we started breaking sod was probably a magnificent thing. I'd give anything to come back to see what that was like. But and I think that's, where Healthy for Life and I really create some synergy, is that what they're doing is allowing people to fill in the holes in that nutritional gap. I mean, we're just not going to be able to get it done with our food for a while. And so Healthy for Life is one of the few companies I think that exists in the United States that is really acknowledging that and seeing that, and that we need, it might take 20, 30, 40 years, but we've got to start, band-aiding a little bit of our nutrition for each individual so that we can get back to health instead of chronic disease.
Yeah. Thanks, Nick. And
Did I miss anything, Tim?
no, you said everything I told you to say. Thank you, Nick. No, joking.
Right.
All of us on the call, just start your questions and answer or questions. And some of you might, it's okay to have comments. I think we're all friends here and we're all going to interact. And what we love about these webinars is an ability to be able to connect with one another and from our own homes and here at Healthy for Life. And so what questions do you have for Nick? What questions you might have for Brian and I? It's go ahead, what do you have? I'll wait for a little bit, and here we go.
Yeah, that's a tough one. You fight your husband, 93-year-old father, on no sprays. The thing about your 93-year-old father is here's where, okay, so 93, so he was what, probably, he's born what, in the 20s, and he probably was a young guy fighting all those weeds in the 40s, and he worked harder than he ever did, and probably never thought he made money, and life was just too tough. Well, I asked my dad about that all the time, and he remembers the day where his dad, my grandpa, came home and had a new product, and all of a sudden he had to do a lot less work because he could just spray this, and it was like a miracle. It was half the work. But I think this is a multi-layer question, multi-layer answer. What I'm afraid to say is that we've been lied to about the science. I know we could get some chemists and scientists and legislators that would all argue that would not the case in EPA, and I know I could file just as many on my side to say that it is a problem. I would say your 93-year-old grandpa or father is still around because he has an immune system that is amazing, because he got fed from the earth. He was connected to a non-chemical, nutrient-dense food source and microbiome when he was young. Same with my parents. I mean, they're both 74 and pretty healthy. My dad's overweight. He has some challenges, but he's pretty good. My mom may live forever. Those immune systems were beautiful back then. And now you look at our children, and I can't give you the stats right off the top of my head, but I think there's something like 1 in 4 kids has an autoimmune disease. You look at allergies, you look at ADD, ADHD, you look at autism rates, you look at, I could go on and on. Look at the University of Iowa Hospital for Children, that, the big one at Kinnick where they all wave. That thing is like 30 floors, and they're not just, repairing broken arms from a skateboarding accident. That essentially makes me feel like that is an autoimmune, that's an autoimmune center for kids. again, and maybe half of it is, but the fact that that exists is not progress. We should not be proud of the University of Iowa clinic for being there. I'm not saying that it's not great for kids that need it. That's a great thing. The fact that we need it though means that maybe we're going in the wrong direction. And so on the spray bottle for the sprays, it says that it's not harmful for human beings. You know, obviously you have to wear gloves and they have to go through training to spray that, which should tell you one thing. But, you know, glyphosate's an issue. That's Roundup, right? You're going to find in 10 years, 15 years, I don't know how long it'll be. I bet it'll be then 10 years. We're going to find out that that might have been the biggest mistake we've ever done to humans globally. I think it'll be worse than DDT, if yes, my honest opinion. So, and I think I had cancer because of atrazine. I think that when I was in high school, I was playing in a creek right after it had rained, right after the farmers had sprayed a bunch of it. I remember going home specifically and having fevers and hallucinating. And I mean, I thought I was literally going to die. So why would that happen? I was playing in a, you know, overflowed creek that had a lot of runoff from farm ground. I mean, it was either that or something else. But so I guess that's what I believe in my core. And I think a lot of other people really know it if you really start asking questions about their youth and about diversity and where did all the pheasants go? Where did the ducks go? I mean, if I sat down and got your 93-year-old father to start telling me about the stories and the beautiful, you know, everything great about when he lived, instead of like fighting weeds, you know, the hard work of the farming, which has gotten easier with technology and machinery. We can bring back that type of biological farming with the advent of precision farming and GPS and moving cows with an electric fence. I mean, could you imagine if they had that back in 1930? They'd think that was pretty great too. So maybe they would have never tore up all their fields. But.
Nick, here's a question. My uncle's a farmer in Charles City who is a monocrop farmer. How can he financially, how economically can you make a transition to regenerative farming? How could you do that?
Well,
is that possible, or is it?
Yeah, it's possible. There are bridges. There's good friends of mine at Mad Agriculture out in Boulder that have a perennial fund that they'll partner with you for 10 years, and they will give you those funds up front so you can get that farm biology working, so you can work on crop yields, you can work on healthier livestock, you can work on higher production yields without the inputs. There's plenty of USDA grants and conservative practices, and you know, it takes a little bit of work. And there's actually some newer, younger generation type people that are trying to put these together. You know, it's kind of a combination of private, nonprofit, and government working together, I think. And I think that'll only get better. So essentially, we're gonna, and I hate to use the government to pay people to do things, you know, to incentivize just by paying them. But I've tried looking at it independently for 20 years, and I'm not sure there's any other way, to be honest. I think the taxpayer may just have to force them to not do it anymore and find in a transition, you know, maybe it's a 10-year transition to, because it's all about, you can't just turn the switch. I mean, you're going from chemical farming to biological farming. It's like night and day. It's checkers versus chess. So it's not fair to say to the farmer, hey, you're all of a sudden, you're going to be organic tomorrow, and all of a sudden assume that he can pay his bills. It's just not going to happen. So we're going to have some bridge there.
Here's a question about the relationship of the human microbiome to the microbiome of the soil. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Well, I wish I was a little, I think if I had to go back to school, I might have taken these classes and paid attention, but Tim and you and I are both big fans of a individual called named Zach Bush. And my dad too would be able to speak a little more eloquently on this, but we are one and the same. Our microbiome is the same microbiome in the soil. You know, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We are soil. Soil is us. There is no breaking that that bridge, that gap, that connection. We've done it. I mean, that's why we're in the mess we are. That's why 60% cancer rate. That's why autoimmune diseases are on the rise. That's why we can't focus. That's why we have Alzheimer's. That's why, it's chemical overload and a lack of biodiversity and microbiome. Little things about the microbiome that I didn't know of is if I'm within 6 feet of you, our microbiomes actually communicate to each other, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure if that was a Zach Bush or somebody else. And if that's the case, I guarantee you the microbiome of the earth is communicating with our microbiome. So, Tim, that'd be a great, even if it was just like some fun facts that people could easily read and retain and share with their friends. It just goes to show you that we've got, that connection's got to be built, and mycorrhiza too, like, and fungi, that's Paul Stamets is the mushroom guy. The mycorrhiza and microflora of the ground of the soil is constantly talking to each other. And it's really cool. I mean, to hear those guys passionately talk, and they're scientists too. I mean, it's where I probably lack a little bit as my scientific prowess, but yeah, it's all connected.
Here's a question, Nick, is there a difference between grass-fed beef and regenerative fed beef?
I don't know if I've ever had that question. Grass-fed beef is just simply, forage fed, not starches. The starch comes from the grains. And essentially that's changing the omega-6 to 3 ratios. Omega-6 ratios get spiked, well above 20, 25, 30 to 1. You want that, lower the possible. You want a balance of them. You need all three of those, but you don't want a spike of it. It'd be like, imagine just eating bread all the time, right? Or, high carbohydrate bread and pasta. I mean, you become inflamed. Your gut says, all right, I need some greens. I need some diversity, right? Diversity in food. Regenerative beef, that, it's an interesting you brought that up, because when we're fleshing out our 99 counties, we're trying to decide if we should not allow, but if we should work with farmers who do feed some grains to their ruminant animals, maybe in the winter at this time of year, maybe not in the ending phase, maybe it's just oats, maybe it's just a little bit. Do they soak those? Because you can grow those grains regeneratively, and you could feed those to ruminant animals. It would give them a little more energy. It might add a little more marbling. It might make it a little bit more of our traditional beef and not be so lean. I mean, that's the biggest criticism and the biggest challenge I face is putting enough energy into those animals so that they develop fat. So it becomes more of a, an American style steak that's tender. I mean, everyone kind of has an idea of what a ribeye and a New York strip and a sirloin should cut like and eat and chew. I mean, that's why we have molars, but we still don't want it to be too tough. So regenerative food in general, I think would be, or regenerative farming is really the broad spectrum of, am I continually increasing my organic matter? Am I giving my soil what it needs to give me more next year? And then when it gives me more, am I giving it back more to give to the next year? So are we increasing our resiliency? Are we increasing our yields to be more sustainable ourselves when we pay bills? And so that's how I look at regenerative as a system of a whole versus a very small portion. On my farm, grass-fed beef is just a portion because I want biodiversity. I'm going to get some chickens back. Excuse me, they all blew away in the storm, and then I'm going to try to do some modifications and do some pastured pork on the clover fields and work on some laying hens again. So, I'm trying to add more things to my farm too. More living animals all the time, more flowers, more plants, more birds, more hooved animals. So the more the better.
Gotcha. Now here's a good question. Why do organic foods, meats cost so much more when not paying for chemicals on the produce? shouldn't it be more cost effective? That's a great question.
Yep. I would say it's a couple things. I'll just use beef as an example. So we both have, I'm the commodity guy, the grocery store beef guy, and me. We both have a cow. They both are born April 1st. He's going to put that cow into more of a feedlot setting and feed it very cheap feedstuffs, more grain that's been subsidized by you, taxpayer, believe it or not. And he's going to push that animal a lot harder, and it's going to come to market probably in 16 months. And mine's going to take probably almost a year more. He's not going to use as much land because he's not grazing the animal. He's putting it into a feedlot, where I'm continually grazing the cow and the calf, and they call them a yearling. So after it's weaned, it lives a whole nother, almost 2 years, year and a half. So I'm using up a little more land, or a lot more land, because I'm grazing more, and I'm not putting very cheap subsidized grains, and I'm not putting an implant in it, so it doesn't spike its hormones, so it grows faster. So a lot more time. Like if you look at it as a piece of furniture you might buy in Target versus someone who makes it by hand. They're both made out of wood. Woods are different. Construction's different. The look of it's different, and it has its own soul and essence, right? When you buy it from the person who built it versus, factory type setting. So it's kind of my best answer at that.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things, what do you think about the simple supply and demand? This is something we talk about with our Healthy for Life customers all the time. When the consumer demands organic food, demands that food be more nutrient dense, demands that there not be chemicals on the food, the grocery store, the Costco's, the big box, even the big box, they start to listen to the demands of the people. And the reason why I say that is because it's like medicine. People don't realize how much power that they have, because we've been led to believe we have none. I compare it to the number of people that come in our store and they just don't believe they have the power to work on making themselves healthy themselves. They just simply don't believe that. And part of my job is to help them believe. And the same, I think, is true of the economics of supply and demand. The consumer has a lot more power than they ever believed that they did. And I've seen, in the 12 years since I've been doing organic, I've seen the prices drop, and I've also seen an abundance, a lot more organic opportunities, or a lot options everywhere.
Yeah, I think that that's actually one of that I was thinking about doing my third video on, was the power of, and it's not someone spending all of their money, just the power of the dollar by a lot of people across the state and across the country putting it towards one effort. I think people are surprised how much money they spend on something, and when they multiply that by the market share, how they can drive change or drive demand the way they want. And a lot of that cheaper food's coming from, which is it's better than what was. I mean, organic lettuce is better than non-organic. Now we need, and that's being grown out in probably California on a large scale by a corporation. So I'm not saying that's awful, because that's just a phase, right? First phase was you grew your lettuce at home, or you didn't eat lettuce in the winter. You pickled your vegetables at home and put them in the cellar, and then you ate those in the winter, and then you were happy to have your first dandelion greens or whatever in the spring. So now we can get lettuce all the time. But so then the next phase was it went to all commodity lettuce, and then people demanded organic lettuce, and so now the corporations are doing organic lettuce on a large scale. Now we need to get back to a combination of all lettuce locally grown yourself or through your your local farmer. And then if you really need to eat lettuce in the winter, then you can either, have somebody here with a greenhouse or a grow box, or, get it from California. So I don't think it's an all or, however I want to say that. Either or, it's and both. I mean, 50% should come from here and 50% from there. But yeah, if you start demanding, grass-fed beef out of suppliers here in Iowa, they're going to grow it. And if you incentivize it so they can make a little bit of a premium, and there's people that are resourceful and have education that can help them along the way, and maybe you can have the government incentivize them by doing more of that farming. And I think slowly you just move that ship, right? And it's just a turn by a degree or two all the time, and before you know it, you're headed in a different direction. So, and I mean, if we swapped all over to organic, if we just said, all right, we're going to outlaw all chemicals tomorrow, I mean, we wouldn't have any food. So, like I said, it's when I break out my 99 counties, I'm saying it's a 10-year goal. My 10-year goal is to have 10% of Iowa back into regenerative. If I did that with the help of thousands of others, that's probably a $3 billion company. $3 billion. I've run all those numbers and they're staggering. I should probably just publish those on a couple, 3 sheets, but and 3 billion, to be honest, is not that much. I mean, food industry is huge. So just think of all the states in the Midwest did that. And people say you can't feed yourself with organic, right? Organic can't feed the world. It's total bullshit. Excuse my language. It's first of all, we don't need to feed the world. The last time I checked, if we just get rid of the warlords and all the corrupt politicians and governments stealing everybody's resources, the world can feed itself. I'm pretty sure they can feed themselves. They've been doing it for a long time. We're just getting in the way. It's about power and greed and money and the elites. So let's get out of the way and let people feed themselves. And yeah, well, let's share. Like, we're not growing citrus here, so we're going to send down a bunch of, grass-fed beef, or maybe we do hogs better than anybody, and we send that down to Florida. My goal is to send 1 semi of Berkshire, Iowa-grown pork down to Florida. The truck unloads 20 pallets, and they load up 20 pallets of citrus, and then it comes back up here, and everybody who, loves their pork, who's eating that, now it picks up their box of citrus. That's regen nation right there. And then along the way, you'll be like, Indiana will be like, hey, why don't you stop here? So then they're sending down their best, and then citrus is getting shipped all over the place. So I mean, you can take that, Colorado peaches or whatever. So that's the regenerative nation I want to live in. Is I want to hop on the map and be like, hey, where's the truck from Michigan coming with those cherries? Like, when's it going to be? Where's it going to be? Des Moines? Like in a week? All right, I'm buying a box. Or maybe I buy 2 boxes and I have an artisan food maker, do something, dry those cherries, turn those cherries into juice or whatever, and I eat some cherries fresh, and then I save some cherries for the winter. So, I mean, I know I'm half dreaming when I say that stuff, but that's how I think. I'm like, this isn't rocket science. We can put this together. It's just a matter of logistics. So instead of having Walmart and Costco do it, why are we letting Walmart, Costco, and Jeff Bezos at Amazon dictate this? Like, we can just create our own communities.
This is an interesting one. Nick Charles says, have you ever heard or know that during the Bible days, every 7th year they would rest their land? I guess, is that something that's in one form or another done nowadays? I used to hear the word fallow when I first moved to Iowa 30 years ago.
That's crazy.
Talk about that, Nick.
Yeah, Tim. So I'm always talking to Tim like, Tim, I just had a law of attraction or synchronicity. I just finished listening to a podcast and I overheard them before I turned off talking about 7 years. Every 7 years there was fallow. It's really crazy that it just came up. I have heard about that. I don't know much about it. I guess my first response would be, I don't know if I want it to go fallow. Well, if you're grazing ruminant animals correctly, every year you are going to make the land better and better. If you go fallow and take off those animals, then I feel like you almost miss a year of increasing the biology. And I'll give you an example. This isn't necessarily production ground, but CRP, if I don't know how many of you know what CRP land is, but it's that really hilly kind of ground. And when you drive by it, it's always kind of, it's like maybe green in the first 6 weeks of the year, and then it kind of gets brown. And there's all these little like scraggly evergreen spruce looking trees that never get very big, and they kind of burn it sometimes. And it's like, that's the government's idea of taking highly erodible land, putting out a 10-year contract and paying a farmer pretty good money. Like, the steeper it is, the more they get, like almost as good as rent, for not doing anything. They don't do anything. To me, that is not the worst thing, but that is just a waste. You're not improving that soil. You might get a bird or two that poops on it. I mean, you're just leaving it for grasses that have no activity. You need animals, pounding it in, and birds and rodents. And I mean, you need to bring in life. And the best way to do that is through grazing of ruminant animals. If you guys have ever had a chance to look at the Savory Institute, Alan Savory, he's a South African, who did a lot of work with some of these wildlife preserves. And he proved, he's an older gentleman, I think he's in his late 80s now, but he proved that he made a huge mistake, and they did not manage the buffaloes and other grazing animals correctly, and they culled a bunch of them, thinking that too much pressure was bad. But he's got photographs from once he stood in one spot that is just like almost like a desert. Took a picture, you could see a couple trees in the background as markers. And then he instituted what his belief was truly regenerative, holistic management with livestock, with the people, moving animals frequently, and bringing back biology. You can't even imagine 30 years what that transpired. The creek that was dry came back and was lush. The only reason you would believe that it was the same spot is because those trees that were markers, you could kind of see the hillside where, now it was covered in lush vegetation. He changed the entire ecosystem with ruminant animals grazing. And that's how this earth used to be. I mean, we were somewhat of a nomads, right? I mean, not that we're going to be moving around in yurts, but I mean, we need to get back to being shepherds. Is what we need to do. And that's not to say we can't till up a little bit here and there and do some new no-till and plant, some small grains and vegetables and root vegetables and, even some organic corn. I mean, we can do all of that in a very regenerative fashion, and we don't need to crank out 250 bushel corn year after year after year after year. So maybe that 7-year was 7-year rotation. Maybe it's perennial grasses where for 7 years we don't touch it. We graze it for 7 years. So long answer to a short question.
Here's an interesting question Michelle asks. Have you ever spoken with Governor Reynolds, Senator Ernst, Senator Grassley? And Michelle says she has in the past, and the answers are usually that they simply support the farmer. So that means however they farm. And go ahead, I'll let you. I want to
Thanks, Tim.
Jump in a little bit on this one because that's a very interesting one. And of course, Nick and I have this conversation all the time, and we have customers at Healthy for Life who are farmers. What we call conventional farming, and the world is we have people that come in here with masks. We have people that come here who don't wear masks. We have people that come here who refuse to wear a mask, and we have people that come in here that would not come in here without masks. And my point in that is, we're all in this together. The earth, it's going, our water, our soil, our food is all connected. We need all three. And so when the politicians say we support the farmer, is there room in all that, Nick, for all farmers everywhere? Like you said, it's like the difference between dominoes and chess when it comes to organic farming and conventional farming, or mono crops, soy, basically Iowa's soybean and corn.
Two crops.
That's what we're
Yeah.
talking about. So because we also need the politicians on some level, although usually these movements happen and the policy and the politicians catch up. They usually come later as things have happened. So speak a little bit to that. And Michelle, I'm sorry I jumped in a little bit too much in that, but go ahead, Nick. This is the world you live in. So
Yeah, the reason that that's the answer from politicians is because they're politicians and they want to get elected. I'm not throwing all politicians overboard, just most of them, but this is never going to be solved from the top down. This is a bottom up. This is a grassroots change. Everything change. All change happens. Real change that means something to people comes from the bottom up. That's why 99 counties, I think, is important. To start with the soil and the farmers and the food, and then the people that are going to take care of that food, and then the consumers, right? And then at some point, that movement will get so powerful and have the attention of many others, politicians and lobbyists and corporations, that there will be they will want to come to the table to discuss how they can be involved. And it'll be very important for us as the builders of that movement is to protect that movement and to continue it in its purity, or as much as possible. Yes, and yes, all farmers will be invited to this movement and this conversation. And I mean, I think some of it's generational. I think that there are going to be a lot of them that hold on to what they believe in, but I really do hope that at some point we can all agree that glyphosate, Roundup, and some of these other chemicals are a threat to human beings. And it's not just a decision by a few lobbyists that, worked at EPA and now they're back, Monsanto's Bears / EPA / whatever agency. I mean, that's really kind of what's been happening the last, 20 years. I mean, Roundup really started as a antibiotic, and then in the 90s it got passed, and it's been used in the mid 90s ever since. And now just correlate that, even though correlation isn't causation, but if you just look at the correlation of when Roundup started in the mid 90s, in the last 20 years, I mean, our health is just tanked. So I think it's bottom up, and I think you hold the line and you hold the course, and you do not waver when you get to be the new kid in the class, and you've really got things going and working for you. You just have to hold the line, and you just have to say, we're not going to go back. We're not going to allow anybody to manipulate or, take over our truth, right? Truth shall set you free.
mm-hmm. Here's a good question. Dave asked, well, who determines the validity of the term organic, and have the agencies that do so earned our trust?
I think that was a bunch of hippies back in the 60s that said organic, right? And then I think that that resonated with enough people, and then I think it got the attention of marketers, lobbyists, politicians, and then I think they took it over. And then there was the National Organic Standards, the NOS, and then they created it. Now they invited a lot of people to take part in how they crafted the organic guidelines. And I think that, as you might guessed it, there was a big table with big chairs, and the small producers and the people had the smallest part of that table and the smallest chairs. And now organic doesn't. I mean, I'm not saying it's not great to where we're at, but we have to, can't stop. I mean, that was the first phase, and now we're moving on to better things, regenerative and more of a, I'd be more curious to have a microbiome movement than an organic movement
Mhm.
or an immune system movement. That's what we're all suffering from. Myself too. You know, I mean, my immune system, I had chemotherapy when I was 19. I had the surgery. I had a horrible snowmobile accident when I was 35. I've broken a bunch of ribs. I mean, my body's been taxed pretty good. And when I was 5, I had a bicycle accident and cut my stomach open then too. So, you know, my immune system's pissed off at me. So I'm constantly trying to battle between the world I live in and, really a fine line of eating well and stretching and, taking care of myself when I say I'm too busy. So
Mhm. Here's another interesting question. Do you talk about the distribution of your products? Talk about Wallace Farms and the distribution, and it's added to it. Do you subcontract the haulage, and how far can you haul something before it makes your product no longer cost effective?
yeah, sure. I've never really run, um, a carbon input output analysis. Here's how I look at it. If you can get there and back in a day, to me that feels doable, local, sustainable. It makes for a long day. If I leave early in the morning, I go on to west suburb of Chicago and got 150 to 200 families that pick up a box of meat, and my truck's mostly full. I do longer weekends in Chicago once a month that the truck's really full and in 2 days. Um, I know there's some sustainable seafood companies. Sitka Salmon Shares is a company out in Western Chicago that I work with a little bit, and they do home deliveries. So they're bringing stuff in by the cargo plane or plane, train, or automobile from uh, the inside passage of Alaska and bringing it into where they at in Illinois, not Galena, just south of there, Galesburg. And so then they distribute to the last mile to each person's home. So we're gonna have to, weigh that efficiency. But I think within a day's driving back, you wanna make sure that the people that are working and delivering those products can live a life where they're not stressed out. I think that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, if I get to the point where I'm a little stressed out, I think, if that's too much for me, then what type of sustainability are we looking at for other people who are going to work inside these, in 99 counties, right? So Wallace Farms, I think I might have skipped this part of Wallace Farms, but the reason I'm starting 99 counties is because, for 20 years, Wallace Farms was doing just great. And then I don't know if I see it as the future, because I think farmers are going to burn out. If you're trying to be production, you're going to grow the food. Then you got to do all the work to work with the processors to get everything, all the sausages and the recipes and the spices. And then you got to get it into your warehouse, and then you got to pack it, and then you got to deliver it. And then you got to do the payroll, and then you got to, right. And then. So you're doing 3 full-time jobs in one. And we expect our regenerative sustainable farmers to do this and not miss a beat and raise 3 kids and coach Little League. It's just, that's where I'm like, I got to come up with a different system without, too much, not too different. We're still in the food business, but we need to, we got to streamline this. We got to make it bigger. We got to make it more of a movement. So the hardest part for farmers is distribution and marketing and kind of that processing work. They can grow the food. Farmers just want to farm for the most part. They want to be on their farm. They want to farm. They want to raise their families, make some money, take a vacation, put a little money away and not have to worry about if they, break their knee falling off the skid steer like I did the other day. I mean, you can't afford that right now in the way that we pay our farmers. So I'm trying to come up with a better way. And I think 99 counties is a way to do it. And again, I don't want to make this all about 99 counties, but there's me and some other good people working on how we can do this.
Mhm.
So
Here's a question. Do you have your meat processed at the Newhall locker?
I did a little bit much earlier when I started. Dave Sutton's the guy there, and he's just state inspected, and he doesn't have a very big production facility, and he's busy. So he can't, when we talk about efficiencies, like I took in 2 weeks ago, I had some fat cattle that I bought from a friend of mine, hour and a half from here. And then I had some cull cows. So like some breeding stock that didn't breed, or a cow that, wasn't either a good mom or, so it's kind of ground beef, right? So, or braising meats, crockpot meat. So I 20 head is really what I need to take in at one time to create efficiencies. So, Newhall locker. I'd love to see Newhall. They're on Main Street, like literally they're on their tiny little Main Street, and you go in the back alley and, drop off your animal. I would love to see Newhall have a idea of a new, bigger locker that can handle a bigger load. And maybe I'm in Benton County. Maybe they're the Benton County locker for my area. And maybe there's a new rule where a state inspected can go sell meat across county lines. Because if I did everything at Newhall, I wouldn't be able to take it into Illinois. The law prohibits that, even though it's state inspected and it's healthy for an Iowa resident to eat. It's not healthy for, it's not, they don't say it's not healthy. They just say it's illegal. So somebody in Illinois can't buy that meat, which is crazy to me. It's either safe or it's not, right? I mean, are we doing our job with the state level or are we not? But there's a new rule that they finally are dusting off, and they're going to try to allow interstate commerce between states. So we'll see if that sticks, or if they with COVID and this whole breakdown of our food security, and they've got to change. They got to change some of those rules. So
cool. All right, Michelle said Joni Ernst and Senator Grassley do their 99 county tours, and that's why she asked that question. I did not know that.
I didn't know Ernst did, but I knew Grassley's kind of famous for that, right? He gets to all 99.
99.
But I kind of thought about that too. I'm like, well, if they're going there, and what are they getting done? So why don't we take on 99 counties, and maybe we'll invite them to our cookout, right?
Yeah, that's right. All righty. Any more questions? Any more questions for Nick? Wallace Farms, Microbiome. I wish I could. I got a question for you. That's just kind of. I was raised in the concrete and the asphalt of Baltimore, Maryland, and come out here to Iowa. Is the water here really that bad? And is the soil out here really that bad? I don't know. I mean, I see those warnings when my kids were growing up, don't go in the water, but is it really as bad as I think it is?
Well, define water. I mean, you're talking like creeks and rivers and streams, or are we talking like the drinking water that comes from aquifers, or, Des Moines? I don't know. Does anybody drink Des Moines water anymore?
Not without filtering it.
Yeah. I mean, when you, like right now, I mean, the water's probably a lot cleaner in those rivers and lakes and streams, right? But once you start spraying, when it rains and it runs off, I mean, it's got chemical. Well, let me put it this way. Is the dead zone in the Gulf getting bigger or smaller? The answer is bigger. The fact that there is a dead zone the size of, what's the size of now? Like
Rhode
Island, probably bigger, is ridiculous. It's pathetic. And we should all be embarrassed. And then the people that live on the coast that have fishing operations, shrimping operations, should be suing every single state up to Minnesota. I still can't fathom that exists. I don't even know how to talk about it. Like, what year do we live in? We just ignore that it's there. What is it? Just some random phenomenon? Mm-hmm. No, it's a casualty of war, is what that is.
Yeah, when you were talking, collateral damage came into my mind, and I don't know collateral damage from what. It's kind of like it's I liken it
food.
to the people I talk in. A lady was in here today, high blood pressure and medication that has lowered her blood pressure over the last 10 years. And oh yeah, by the way, it's destroyed her kidneys. The side effect, collateral damage from a chemically induced lowering of blood pressure has now destroyed her kidneys. And now she's looking for answers to heal her kidneys. And she's in here to talk about natural food. She's talking about food. We're talking about, we're talking about essential fatty acids. We're talking about being dilators that help to, enlarge the veins and the arteries and the capillaries. So yeah, when you were talking collateral damage, so that big, huge dead zone the size of Rhode Island is just collateral damage or a side effect for something.
Cheap food.
Okay.
Yep. And corporations.
Okay.
And lobbyists. And I mean, I hate to sound, I go back and do I want to sound like that? Do I want to say those words? I don't know. Who else are you going to blame?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
that's just the truth. The truth hurts. I'm sorry. It's just, that's the way it is. And we all know it.
Yeah. Okay.
DC's lost. It's gone.
Okay.
Sorry.
Michelle, one last question. Michelle wants to, what do you know about fluoride? And I don't know if Michelle meant that for water or
fluoride. Okay. So that'll trigger my dad. Google it through the Weston A. Price Foundation. We probably don't have time to totally get into the Weston A. Price Foundation, but he was a dentist that was smarter. I mean, that guy was paying attention, right? He was a dentist who in the 20s, 30s started to see like malformations in his patients' teeth, especially the kids. He's like, what is going on? And he thought, it was like, man, it's got to be nutrition. So he wrote a book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. So he went to prove this. And every summer he went to remote parts of the world. He went to the Aborigines. He went up to the coast of Ireland. He went down into the Alps of Switzerland. He went all over the place, like 7, 8, 9 regions. It couldn't be more different than a blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid in the Alps versus a Aborigine kid with a walking stick, with his grandpa, walking out in the red clays of Australia, right? I mean, but their teeth and their jaws were full and straight and like beautiful. Now, some they'd file them down, and the kids in Ireland had like, green teeth, but he'd clean them up and he'd take pictures of them all, and they were like magnificent. And then he'd go to in the Alps, he'd go down the mountain to more of an industrialized city that had started to bring in processed food, the 3 white devils, right? White flour, white sugar, white milk, not raw milk up in the Alps, like processed milk, right? Mm-hmm. And took pictures of the kids' teeth. And guess what? Mm-hmm. Started to crowd crooked malformations. And he documented it every single place he went, the same theme all over the place. Mm. And I have 2 friends that graduated the University of Iowa Dental School. Do you think either one of them knew who Weston A. Price was? Nope.
Yeah.
That is a tragedy.
Yes, that's a tragedy.
So.
All righty. Well.
So check out fluoride, because I don't think it's in our water to help our teeth.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Nick, thank you so much for your time. Thanks. You for everyone.
This is awesome.
Yeah, it's great to do this and fun to do this with a friend. A little bit of announcement, because it's coming up real soon. 2 weeks and a day. It'll be Tuesday night, February 23rd. John Schultz, which is our next door neighbor, physical therapist, wonderful holistic health practitioner, who's a physical therapist, is going to be talking about pain, how to reduce it naturally. We're going to talk about nutrition in relationship to pain, bone structure, bone formation, osteoporosis. We're going to cover a bunch of stuff. And so tell your friends and neighbors to come and John's great. And I heard there was rumors he's going to give away a pair of urban poles. And if you haven't seen John's urban poles, we have 2 pair at our house, and they work really well, and we enjoy being out on the trails with them. So everyone who came tonight, thank you so much. Nick, thank you so much as usual. Brian, thank you. Healthy for Life, and thank you for all of our customers who, make our lives here possible. And we hope you find these kinds of conversations valuable. And thank you so much. Have a great night, and drive safe.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks, everybody.
You
Really
bet.
appreciate it.
You bet.
All right.